All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Trevor Kumec, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my project, Healthy Rivers and Healthy Communities, using local collaboration to guide salmon restoration in the Yuba River. So, real brief background here. If you don't know, California salmon populations are in decline throughout their range. Carly and I have a little bit different numbers here, but 70 to 90% of critical spawning habitat for Chinook salmon has been lost in Central Valley streams. This figure here is the Central Valley, also known as the Sacramento-San Joaquin watershed. And the black lines here are stream habitat that have been disconnected due to the construction of dams that don't allow fish to migrate to their spawning habitat. And there are a lot of different ways that we talk about restoring salmon habitat, restoring salmon populations. One of which is the restoration of fish passage via barrier removal or dam removal. And there's this real growing movement that American Rivers, a nonprofit, has been tracking for a long time. You can see the gray kind of squiggly line here shows number of dams that have been removed in the US per year. So you can see it's a strategy and a movement that is building a lot of momentum, and we're about 100 dams a year are being removed, not including the COVID dip. And so part of this CSP Capstone project thing encourages us to spend the first part of our time doing a lot of research, figuring out where we want to do this work, who we want to be working with. And so when I started talking to people in this kind of Central Valley region, I kept hearing about the Yuba River. There's this barrier that people are interested in taking out on the Yuba River. And I know that the Yuba is a really incredible watershed for salmon and steelhead and trout. So I wanted to learn more about that. And that kind of drove me to meet with the South Yuba River Citizens League, specifically their watershed sciences director, Aaron Zettler-Mann. And we started talking, and we realized that there was definitely some potential for us to have a partnership. And so South Yuba River Citizens League, also known as Circle, is my capstone partner. We co-designed the rest of this project together. And a little bit of background on the watershed. The Yuba River is also known as Ubaseo in the indigenous Nisenan language. It's the ancestral and ceded homelands of the Nisenan people, who are still represented today by the Nevada City Rancheria. And this presentation will be posted. If you're interested in learning more, follow these links. So if we zoom in on the watershed a little bit, there's a few really important migratory fish species there that I've listed. And we have a picture of the watershed here, and I've drawn in these 3 red lines to represent some major dams that exist. There are many more than just these 3, but these 3 are particularly important because they're in the main river and they block a significant amount of habitat. Now, if you were a fish swimming upstream, the very first thing you would bonk your head into is this dam here. It's called Daguerre Point Dam. And that's kind of what I'm going to be spending the majority of my talk discussing today. So Daguerre Point was built in 1906 to control mining sediment that was washing downstream during the gold rush era. It was later fitted with fish ladders, which I've highlighted with this red arrow here. If you don't know, a fish ladder is a sort of engineered canal that allows fish to use graded pools to get upstream of the dam. They're not perfect. They can be ineffective. But in this case specifically, NOAA Fisheries did a study at this site and determined that indeed there was suboptimal fish passage for salmon and steelhead, and that it's still a complete barrier for the threatened green sturgeon and Pacific lamprey. But on the other hand, this structure acts as a diversion point for irrigation water for farms in the area. there's a lot of crops that are grown around there. So as Circle and I started to work together on co-designing this project, we kind of mapped out a solution path. What did we think it would take to get from point A to point B, and likely many points in between? And put very simply, for the purposes of this presentation, if we have this goal of restoring salmon habitat, some kind of typical strategies that are used to do that are removing barriers and improving passage and restoring the floodplain. Now, what I have learned from reviewing literature and doing interviews with people who are experts in this field is there's a prior step that often gets overlooked, and that's building collaboration, building trust with community, with practitioners, and with different agencies. And so looking at the kind of big picture here and how I could be a part of this in the short amount of time I have as a grad student, we decided it would be very helpful for me to focus my efforts on this early stage to set Circle up for continued efforts in improving fish passage down the road. So yeah, I think I animated this here to show like something I learned in my research. Like, you know, when this is in cases previously where maybe a dam removal has tried to happen without the collaboration of the community, you know, it causes roadblocks down the road. It slows the whole process down, and in many cases can completely derail and cancel the project, leading to nothing ultimately. So we don't want that. So getting a little more specific, as we were designing the work I wanted to do, we kind of structured it in three main phases. There's the knowledge building phase, the actual research, and the information sharing phase. So what I did first is a sort of informal literature review where I became familiar with dam removal case studies, fish passage research, and research into community engagement in restoration projects, specifically river restoration. And then we designed and conducted a survey to learn more about community values in the lower Yuba River and Daguerre Point Dam. And then finally, we produced a public-facing infographic, as well as a final report that will help guide the future arc of this project after I transition on to other things. So our 12-question survey looks a little bit like this. If you were to pull it up on your phone, this is just one of the questions we asked. It kind of achieved three main goals. We wanted to learn, what do our respondents value in the watershed? How do they perceive dams relative to a few different criteria, a few different attributes? And what specific questions and concerns do they have about dam removal, dam modification, and other restoration? So we distributed the survey through as many pathways as we could. I did a radio interview, some news interviews. We got a press release out that was picked up by a few different places. And we were super happy to see that 162 people responded to our survey. We took that as a sign of that there's high interest in this community, in this river, and in this project. If someone was willing to, hear a radio ad and go home and type the URL into their computer, that was pretty cool to us. So yeah, we're really happy to see that. And I'm just going to share a couple key takeaways. We asked respondents to share, what their values were in the lower river area. And we see that there's quite a wide variety of things that people are interested in. And I would point out, wildlife and environmental protection is a super broad category, whereas fishing for bass is super specific. So I don't look at this table and necessarily rank them, most important to least important, because I think it's a little misleading. I think the value of this table is just to show that there's a lot of interest in a lot of different things. For example, I see, wow, almost 50 people in our relatively small survey really care about preserving irrigation water for farming. That's really important for us to know as we move forward with trying to kind of change that infrastructure. Secondly, we asked our respondents how they perceived Daguerre Point Dam and other small dams with specific attributes. For example, how they felt about how it affected the quality of fishing. So in this example, our respondents overwhelmingly think dams negatively impact the quality of fishing. Similarly here, same kind of trend, overwhelming response that dams negatively affect the health of the river. And same kind of trend here with non-fishing recreation. There's kind of a really clear trend. But with the fourth version of this that we asked the respondents how they felt dams affected the risk to human safety. And the results are a little different. Notably, this middle category is a lot higher. So many people are saying, well, actually, we don't think dams affect human safety at all. And I interpret that as either there could be miscommunication, in the question, of course. There could be a difference of opinion as to what a risk is with flooding or drowning, or it's reflecting that there's maybe not enough awareness about this. We know for a fact that Lowhead dams and Daguerre Point Dam specifically have tragically taken quite a few lives. It's not uncommon for a Lowhead dam to be a really dangerous place. So to me, this says maybe there's an opportunity to increase awareness in the community around this specific hazard. And then the final kind of key point I want to make has to do with, we asked people, what kind of specific questions and concerns do you have? And this is where we hoped to get a lot of really interesting information out of, and I think we did. And I'm going to focus just on the top 5, just for the sake of time. So things we heard, a lot of people are concerned about water and irrigation. A lot of people are concerned about potential toxic sediment that's trapped behind the dam. A lot of people are concerned about improving the status of native fish populations. And then the other two, folks are concerned that non-native fish species may move upstream of the dam if we were to increase fish passage, which could potentially be detrimental to native fish. Then lastly, we had a significant amount of responses that said they were concerned about the safety risk at the dam and public access and improving that. So kind of to bring this all together here, I'm going to bring this graphic back into it to remind ourselves of what the point of this project is. We're trying to use what we learned from this survey to get rid of these squiggly lines, to build this collaboration from the get-go to facilitate this whole process and get fish passage restored. And if we think about kind of the key points that I just said, as well as the survey goals, we learned like what can we bring people together on? What were their values? How do people already perceive this issue? Because it's hard to change minds. And then finally, like, what are the specific sticking points and what are the opportunities we have to work together to either overcome those sticking points or know things that we're just not going to be able to get any traction on. And in summary with how I'm kind of wrapping this up in deliverables. So I created a final report for Circle that will be used going forward with this project, taking what we've learned from our survey, as well as what I've learned from the literature review I did, and taking those two things and kind of marrying them to make real concrete recommendations for what the best, some potential best paths forward are as we continue to seek to improve fish passage and get community buy-in. And then secondly, we created this great infographic. So fortunate to have the help of my wonderful fiance, who's an incredible graphic designer. And this thing here that you're seeing on the screen will be used to share with our survey respondents to so they know kind of what they participated in, and it will be used in the future as like a easy, simple, and concise way to communicate kind of what's happening with this project. It's still in a draft form. It's not done yet. We're still kind of working on it, but I did want to share it with you all. So kind of getting to the end of the talk here, but there's some new news that has emerged just in the last week, the last couple of weeks, that I couldn't skip over because it's pretty important. So just a few weeks ago, the governor and state and federal agencies announced a new plan at Daguerre Point Dam. And just to orient ourselves, this is Daguerre here. This is real. The rest of this is sort of 3D kind of generated model of this proposed fish canal, and that's what this loop is here, that will allow for fish passage around the dam. So this was not something I was aware of. It's not something Circle was aware of. It's definitely a little surprising. It's definitely an interesting solution, and it's not necessarily what we wanted, but it's still something. And so I thought it'd be interesting to kind of bring back some of the results from our survey and see, well, how does this solution actually affect these top 5 things that we heard about? So the first 3, it does an okay job of. It does preserve the irrigation infrastructure. It does keep that sediment trapped behind the dam. And then thirdly, it theoretically, hopefully, is good for native fish populations. It's really hard with engineered structures like this to really, there's a lot of variables, so it's hard to know what the outcome will be. And then on the flip side, unfortunately, it doesn't, it allows fish passage for non-native species as well. So bass are going to be hanging out with the Chinook up there in the upper river, which is potentially an issue, but needs to be studied more. And then lastly, it doesn't get rid of the safety hazard that exists. So that is still potentially an issue. So yeah, kind of in summary for me, what's next? In March, I started a position with California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I've been sort of doing a crisscross transition since then, out of grad school and into this new role. I'm working for the North Coast Salmon Project, which is a really new team designed to expedite and enhance coho salmon restoration projects on the North Coast. I was really excited about this new job coming out of CSP because it really marries my background in more the kind of more hands-on technical work of fisheries monitoring, as well as, but the meat of the job is connecting practitioners, agencies, landowners, et cetera, to really form this kind of collaboration that I've been talking about for the last 15 minutes. And so, yeah, really looking forward to that. This photo here is of the main stem Eel River, beautiful sunset. I hope you enjoy it. And I think that's just about it. I really want to acknowledge a few really important people. Randy Repass and Sally Christine Rogers. Your support in this project is instrumental. Without you, this could not have happened. So grateful. Ann Kapuscinski, my faculty advisor. Again, without your support, I truly would not have been here today. I can't imagine a more passionate, driven, and empathetic advisor, and I feel so fortunate to have been able to work with you. Aaron Zetlerman is my mentor at Circle, and thanks to him and everyone at Circle for all they did to support me and kind of bring me into the team. It was a really great experience working with you all. And then finally, again, as everyone has mentioned, the CSP cohort, we've really formed a tight family here, and I really treasure that, as well as all the faculty who have really supported us. Sarah Emenizer, I know you really drive the ship there behind the scenes. Thank you so much. Megan Quinn at American Rivers, another person who I consulted with frequently. As I mentioned, my fiance, Molly, really helped with that beautiful graphic that you saw. And my best friend, Dylan, really helped me with some statistics that we did in my report. And of course, my parents, Dave and Kelly, for everything else. So with that, happy to take any questions.